What's going on, guys? This is Serious the Warlock here, and this is going to be a video that goes over all of my add-ons. Almost every single day I get a message from someone asking what one of my add-ons is on the screen, how one of my add-ons is set up, and different questions like that. So what I did is I completely wiped out my WTF and interface folders in my WoW installation. I just renamed them to something different, logged into the machine for the first time, and started from scratch like I was installing the game brand new for the very first time, not a single add-on. Then I'm just going to go ahead and walk you guys through how I set up everything from scratch. Hopefully this video doesn't take too long, but there should be no questions after this one. This is going to be the video to end all UI videos. The very first thing you guys should do if you're on a PC is download the Curse client. It's real lightweight, it's very simple, it allows you to easily install add-ons, it lets you know every time there's an update for an add-on. And overall, it's just an amazing app if you use add-ons for World of Warcraft, and I highly recommend it, and it's what I'm going to be using in this video to download and install add-ons. If you're on a Mac, you probably, you'll have to go search for them and install them one by hand. I'm going to put a link to that in the description underneath the video. Go ahead and download that now. There are only two things that we will not be installing through Curse. One is a texture pack, and the other one is an add-on. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with the texture pack and show you guys how to get that installed. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a new tab here, and I'm going to Google Santa, just like Santa Claus, Santa UI textures. That's going to go ahead and take us to a website for WoW interface. In there, you want to carefully read the big red how to install. You do not install this like an add-on. This is very special. It actually goes inside the interface folder, but does not go inside the add-ons folder. So pay close attention to that. It needs to go inside the interface folder, but not inside the add-ons folder. Once you download it, you just go ahead and open it up, and you just want to extract it to that folder. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm on Windows 8.1, so it may be a little different for you guys, but you need to know where WoW is installed. I'm just going to drill down to my install location. Games, World of Warcraft, interface. Do not go any further into the add-ons, just the interface. Go ahead and click OK, and you're just going to extract all the files to that location, and you're done. That's all you need to do. What this is going to do is a lot of the edges that I get asked about around the map, around some of the buttons, a lot of things have like a dark texture to them, and that's where this comes from. It's not even an add-on. There are some things with the buttons that I do, and I'll get to that later. But a lot of the things like around the mini-map are all set up through these textures, and I'll show you guys what that looks like here. Alright, so hopefully you guys can notice up around the mini-map, around my player frame, around some of the buttons, the borders are all kind of dark. And that's exactly what I was talking about. It's just a texture pack, not an add-on. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open back up the Curse client, and I'm just going to start binge installing add-ons. I'm just going to start going down a list, typing in names, and installing every single add-on, and then once they're all installed, then I'll go through sorting them all out and making them look pretty and adjusting their settings. So the first one I'm going to install is Arena Live unit frames. So inside the Curse client, you just go to the Get More Add-ons tab, type in the search box what you're looking for, and then find it in the list. So I typed in Arena Live, I went down to Arena Live unit frames, and I clicked the install button. That's all you need to do, and that's why I use this, because it's so simple. The next thing I'm going to install is Ace. Ace is a library, I believe, that a lot of different add-ons depend on to work properly. I don't really question it too much, I just install it, so I'm just going to type in the word Ace. You'll see it's got a very high popularity rate, and I'm just going to hit the install button. It's Ace 3. Next one we're going to install is Bartender. This is for my action bars. So let's go ahead and type in Bartender. Bartender 4 shows up. Hit install. After that, I'm going to go ahead and install Battleground Targets. This is useful for targeting enemy players inside rated or random battlegrounds. So I'm just going to go ahead and type in the word battle, find Battleground Targets, and install that one. The next one we're going to install is called Diminishing Returns, and this is just going to track different crowd control abilities and help us track which crowd control abilities DR with which and how far into DR they are. So I typed in dimin, found Diminishing Returns. You can see it's popular, and go ahead and hit install. Next up is Extra CD. This is what I use just to track procs, weapon enchant procs, trinket procs, things like that. I'll get to that when I show you how I set everything up. Then after that is Honor Gold. This is something I personally use for myself. Go through my World of Warcraft videos and look at turning honor into gold. I buy these daggers and wait for the time to expire and turn around and sell them for gold. That's how I make a little money off on the side. I don't let my honor go to waste. So go ahead and watch that video if you want more details, but this just makes everything way simpler. Buys all the daggers for you and sells them way faster than you can do yourself. Next up, we have Library Nameplates 1.0. It's like lib nameplate dash 1.0. You'll see it there. It's not very popular, but I believe this is absolutely required in order to get plate buffs working. So I just go ahead and type that in, hit install. It's got 2 likes on it right now, but I believe that's needed for plate buffs to work properly, and that's what shows me my dots over top of my target's nameplates. The next add-on I'm going to go ahead and install is called Mask. This pretty much allows us to customize the look of buttons. You can make them dark and smoky looking, and I'll get to that all when I'm showing you guys how to set everything up. But all it really does is change the look of the buttons to make them look a little cooler. You also need to install, well, I chose to install Mask Gadarion. That's just the brand of skin that will go within Mask. And you'll see when I get to that later, it adds to the look of the buttons, makes them a little darker and cooler looking. The next 2 add-ons I'm going to install both start with Omni. It's Omni CC and Omnibar. Omni CC adds numbers to your buttons. Say if you use Shadow Fury and it's on a 30-second cooldown, it'll actually put the numbers on Shadow Fury, showing a countdown until it's available again. Omnibar actually adds an interrupt bar on your screen, so you can see if you get kicked by a warrior, how long it is until kick shows back up, so you know when to juke it. You don't have to guess if kick is back up off cooldown. You know exactly when it happens so that you can try to juke the kick, and it's really helpful in a lot of different situations with PvP because kicks are so strong right now. Interrupts in general, I mean, are so strong right now. Next up, we have Recount and Recount CC. These are both incredibly powerful tools when it comes to monitoring what happened in PvP. If you're playing against a Warlock and you lost, you can see exactly how many agonies that Warlock got out compared to how many agonies you got out. You can track crowd control, who was crowd controlled most, who on the enemy team was doing the most crowd control. It just allows you to really break down fights if you want to become a better player and look at the data and find out where things went right and where things went wrong. I highly recommend it. I'm always looking at Recount if I want to, and comparing myself to other people and comparing other people to see how everyone's performing. Next up, we have Tip Tack, and this just changes the default tip bar that shows up when you hover over an enemy player or item. I use it for a lot of different things, but it's way cooler than the default one, so I like to install this one. The coolest thing about it is you can hover over someone else, another player, and see if they're targeting you without you targeting them. Next up is Safe Queue. This just makes sure that an arena or rated battlegrounds pops up, you can't possibly hit leave queue and screw over your team. It just makes it so the only button available is to just enter the game. If you don't want to enter the game, you actually have to right-click on the green eye in the upper right in your minimap and leave queue that way. Finally, the last add-on we're going to install is called Plate Buffs. I get a lot of questions about this one. A lot of people complaining it doesn't work. You have to make sure you get the right one. I'll show you where I'm going. You're doing it on the screen. I'm showing you where I get it. But you also need to make sure that you have some of those other add-ons that I already installed through Curse, like Ace 3, lib nameplates. A lot of those are required for plate buffs to work properly. So I'm just going to go ahead and type into Google plate buffs, WoD. It'll take you back to WoW interface. I click where it says new versions 1.18.1 plus. Once that pops up, I click on the orange under the word plate buffs, or it shows an orange 1.18.9. It's maybe newer, depending upon how old this video is by the time you watch it. But I go ahead and click on that, and it takes me to a weird download-like page. I go ahead and hit download to your computer. Should be a really quick download. It's finished already. I'm just going to go ahead and open that up, and I'm going to manually extract that to my World of Warcraft directory. For me, it's users, public, games, World of Warcraft, interface, add-ons. Done. I'm just going to go ahead and extract it there, and we're finished. Now we have all the add-ons that I use for World of Warcraft installed. Go ahead and quit the game completely. Make sure you get completely out of everything, and then go back in from scratch. You may get a message on your screen talking about add-ons being out of date. Just go ahead and check load anyway, and then go ahead and click OK on the next button, just letting you know that you do have add-ons installed. If you've used add-ons, you may not ever see this, but if it's your first time, then you may get it. I just go under my name, make sure that load out of date add-ons is selected, make sure everything I need is checked, and then go ahead and click OK and enter the game. Upon logging in, things are going to look jacked up. Don't worry, we'll walk through everything. The very first thing we're going to do is modify Recount. I'll go ahead and adjust the window size to about that big. It's how I like it. And we're going to change the settings on this first and get it out of the way. First thing I'm going to go ahead and do is go ahead and click on that little gearbox to adjust the settings. And we're going to check all the boxes for ungrouped and hostile on those two first columns. That's going to allow us to see enemy player data in Battlegrounds. And then I'm going to uncheck the data deletion checkboxes because I don't want it to automatically delete any data. Next, I'm going to mess with the colors. So I go to the colors tab, and I just make it like a kind of a shade of blue. And then I'm going to go ahead and dim it down so it's kind of transparent, and then I'm done with that. And then the background, I'm also going to make that pretty transparent too. Not completely transparent, but transparent enough. And then I'm just going to drag Recount down into the bottom right where I like to keep it. And we're done. So we can go ahead and close out of the settings and be done with those. Next thing we're going to work on is Bartender and cleaning up our action bars. In the upper right in your mini map, you should have a little icon that looks like a beer mug. We're going to go ahead and right click on that and bring up the interface options for the Bartender. In here are a ton of options, and some of them could be intimidating. Don't worry, I'll take you through everything. The first thing I did was clicked on Blizzard art bar in the bottom left and then unchecked it to remove all the Blizzard art off of the screen. It just kind of clutters everything up and gets in the way, and it's unnecessary. Next thing we're going to do is go ahead and uncheck that lock checkbox, and it's going to show you all the bars that you can customize, and it'll show you the name of every bar that you can coincide with the left-hand interface. So it'll show bar 1 through 10, bag bar, pet bar, everything's on your screen and everything's named if you look at the green. So for the bag bar, I go ahead and shrink that down. I check the box for it so that it's only one bag. It doesn't need to take up the slots of a bunch of bags. I don't need to see them all on the screen, even though I have it hotkeyed anyway, so I really don't need to see this bar at all. The micro menu, I like to shrink all my bars down. They really don't need to be as big as they are because I'm not really clicking anything. It's just there for show and for tracking purposes, and I don't really know. Some of them I don't even need them on the screen. The micro menu, which is the first one that I'm modifying right now, I shrunk down the scale to 0.85, 0.85. It makes it just a little bit smaller. Then all these other bars, you can kind of drag them around on the screen. You can see I'm trying to get them in the center, and I put them over top of one another in the order that I like to have them in. I go about 3 bars deep, but I mean you can modify these in any way that you like. If you want 4 bars, if you want 5 bars on top of each other, you can customize this in any way that you want. You can see I stacked up all of those bars there. Move the menu over a little bit more. I put the pet bar on top of my action bars to the right. Now I do have some hidden action bars, so I'm going to go ahead and turn those on. A lot of these buttons are already saved on Blizzard side. That's why all the buttons is kind of already look set up and key bound. Bar 8 and bar 9, I use these bars as hidden action bars. So they have buttons on them that are key bound, but I don't need to look at them. I don't need to see them. I don't care to look at them. You have to make sure that they are enabled and on the screen. Then you can go to the visibility tab like that and check the box always hide. Then you don't need to look at them anymore. Once you set up your bar and you set up your action buttons, you could actually do this with all your bars if you didn't want to track any. Maybe leave one bar for cooldowns, but I go ahead and set up those bars, and you can see I go through and I check all of them that I want enabled. Here we have bar 7. Bar 7 is another bar that I have just to the left of my pet bar, and it tracks just a couple abilities for me, like Hellstones, my damage trinket, Dark Soul, things like that. I kind of leave it a little bit bigger than the rest of my buttons, and I leave it on top so that it's quickly visible because I need to know how many of these things I have available to me at any given time. So I think I start off making it 4 buttons wide, and then later on I shrink it down to 3. The XP bar is disabled because I'm not leveling. If I was leveling, it would be helpful to enable that. Alright, so here's where I start messing around with the scale of the buttons. The scale, or the size of the overall buttons, padding, which is another piece that I adjust. Right now it's at 6. I put that down to 1. That is the actual space between the buttons. So padding is space between buttons, and scale are the size of the buttons overall. I mess with the number a little bit to find out exactly what size I'm looking for. And I actually type the numbers in because I'm going to want it exact for all of my button action bars. So I think I settle on 0.9 as being a good size for my buttons. It shrinks it down enough that they're small but not too small. I uncheck the lockbox so I can see the names of the bars that I want to adjust. So I'm going to jump straight to bar 6. I'm going to get that to 0.9, padding down to 1. And then we'll jump to bar 5. Again, put the padding at 0.9, padding at 1, scale at 0.9, padding at 1. The pet bar, I forgot to change this one in the beginning. I go back in a moment and I change that one too. The bars on the side, I want to get them smaller as well. To the right, on the right, that's kind of where I add, like my mount. Some buttons that I push, and I actually click a lot of those buttons, like buffing people and Hellstones, and just something I've done since vanilla. Not buttons that you use too often during combat. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing to those, make the padding 1, make the scale 0.9, and adjust them how I like them. And I may go back through in this video and tweak things a little bit more, but that's how I'm going to leave it for now. The next thing I'm going to add really quick here, and this isn't an add-on, it's the zone map. If you hit Shift-M, I think is the default hotkey for this, it brings up a little zone map. You can right click there and unlock the zone map, and I drag it right over top of my little micro menu and I lock it in place there. It's helpful in Battlegrounds just to see who's capped which node, where different members of your team are. Even though you can't see specifically where your team is, you can see overall where your team is fighting and who controls which node without needing to actually bring up a map on your screen at all. The next add-on that I'm going to mess with is Arena Live unit frames, one I get asked about a lot, and there are a lot of settings for this one. So this one's going to take a little bit of time to go over, but I feel like they're worth it. They've been so good to me. They have very few interface errors at all. They seem clean and lightweight, and they help me. I don't know. I just love them so much. I like the look and feel and everything for them. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up the settings for this. I thought it was /Arena Live, but I was wrong. You actually have to go into Escape, go into the settings, right-click, or Escape, Interface, and then go to the Add-ons tab. And here you have Arena Live unit frames. So first thing I'm going to do is make sure that Unlock Frame is checked. And I go through and as I'm changing things, I lock the frames to see how they look, and then I unlock them. Because when you have them unlocked, they kind of make them default. You can see these names on these frames are kind of weird. It's because they're unlocked. When you lock them, it'll go into normal, and it'll get rid of these weird names. So you want to expand it, go under Unit Frames, and I start with my own player frame. So in the upper left, you have player frames, and then you have frame element. So there are lots of different things you can customize for your frame. So first thing I'm going to do is go to player frame, and it starts off under the general element, and I increase the size to 125. I like my unit frames to be kind of big on the screen, not so big that they're annoying, but you have to be able to monitor your health as you're fighting. Now, I'm showing you all this because there's so many settings. You guys can customize these settings differently if you want. You don't have to do everything like me. I like my borders to be dark, so I go under the border tab, and you're going to have to do this for every single bar. But I make my border completely dark. It kind of fits the theme on everything that I have here. For buffs and debuffs, I don't track my buffs on the unit frame itself. As you can see, I keep my buffs in the upper right. I don't need to see that. I have extra CD as another add-on that I'll get to in a moment to track buffs and debuffs. I don't do it through the add-on, so I uncheck enable. Power bar, I leave this alone. Crowd control indicator, I leave that enabled. Health bar, it should be on class color. I'm trying to figure out why it's orange, but then I realized that once I lock frames, it actually goes to the color that I want it to be. So you don't need to mess with this setting. Next we have name. So we'll go ahead and head over to the name element. Everything looks fine in there. Diminishing return tracker, I leave this enabled. Cast history, this will actually go over a history of your cast and display them under your bar. It kind of annoys the shit out of me, so I uncheck this on everything. Portrait type, I leave it 3D. Dynamic icons, if you want to change any of the icons, so it shows like a racial ability or PvP trinket, or there's lots of different settings in here for you to mess around with. There's the little icons next to the portrait. I leave those the way they are on mine. Next, I'm going to mess with the target frame. And again, every single one of these frames has basically the same settings. So under the target frame, I'm going to increase the scale, make it 125. The border, I'm going to make it dark. The cast bar, I actually want my cast bar to appear above the nameplate. That's where I like to track it. That's where my eyes float to. So it'll appear just above the nameplate will be the cast bar, and it helps me to interrupt because I can see it better. Here I'm going to test out the cast bar and just want to make sure that it looks like it's in a spot that I'm happy with. So I'm going to target myself and try to cast a couple things just to make sure that it's in a spot that makes me happy. And as you guys can see, it makes it very bright and very clear to see someone that you're targeting is casting. That way you can land the interrupt. All right, so we're going to go right back into the options and go to buffs and debuffs. I do want this enabled. I do want to see the buffs and debuffs on the player, but I want my buffs to be a little bit larger. You can see the large icon size. Those are usually the ones, it'll increase the size of yours and make them a little bit bigger than the other buffs and debuffs on your target. So to test out the size of the debuffs on my target, I'm going to target that training dummy behind me, land a couple dots on it, and you can see behind the interface, it's kind of faded out, how big they are, and they're way too big. So I'm going to scale it down to about 34. Looks like a good size to me. I'm going to click unlock frames, and I'm going to go ahead and move these bars exactly where I like to keep them. I like to keep my frame, both frames kind of in the center, lower. My frame to the left of my character, my target to the right. My focus target is going to be just above my actual target. You'll see that in a moment. And here I'm just kind of testing everything out. You want to be able to do the same. You want to make sure that this, again, everything should be customizable to your liking. You don't have to do everything exactly the way that I did it. I'm going to go through a couple more of the options here. A lot of these I'm going to leave alone. I'm not going to touch any settings on these whatsoever. I'm just double checking, going through, reading everything, seeing if there's anything that I might want to change. Cast history is another one. Like I said, I don't like cast history. It annoys me, so I uncheck it. You might like that feature, maybe. Next, I go to the focus frame. And like I said, I kind of keep the focus frame right above my target. And I do want the cast bar below on that one. So what this kind of does, if I have my target and my focus target both above each other, Then the cast bars on the bottom ones above and the cast bar on the top ones below, it kind of makes it really easy to see both cast bars, because the cast bars then become right next to each other for your target and your focus. And it should be easy to spot if you want to lock one out or the other, because you only have one spot to look for your target and your focus target to see if either one is casting anything. I'm all about simplifying things and making them as easy as possible for me. Next up, you also have a target's target frame. So this is going to be a little box to the right of your target to let you know who the person you're targeting is targeting. It could be you, the person you're targeting could be targeting your healer. It's going to let you know who they're looking at, which is really, really important. Again, I go through here on, you guys can see how I customize every one of these settings. I do increase the scale to 125 like I do the other bars. And I do modify the border to make it dark. And then I just drag it into a spot that looks comfortable for me. So you can drag it anywhere you want, but I like it just to the right of my target. It's where I'm used to looking to see who my target is targeting. Next up, we have the pet frame, and I need to summon a pet. And at this point, this is when I realized that it kind of looks goofy. It's not the way it's supposed to look. I didn't not decrease the size of my pet frame, so I'm going to go ahead and do that in a moment. But first, I'm going to put my pet bar right where I like to keep it. It's not too far in the way. It's off to the side a little bit, just below my portrait. And again, same thing here. I need to make the border dark to match all the rest of my borders. I don't really increase the size of this one. I leave it the way it is. I kind of like it small. I don't need to see the buffs and debuffs that are on my pet. You may want to. It might be a bad decision that I uncheck that, but I don't know. It just kind of annoys me. So if my pet dies, I'll know it's taking damage because I can see his health drop. Doesn't really affect me. I can't dispel my pet. I don't really care if it gets dotted, and I'll know if it dies because I can watch its health. For the arena enemy players, these are the nameplates on the right hand side. The space between frames, I kind of shrink that down as small as possible without some of the buffs overlapping each other. To the right, you can see the DR trackers, those numbers counting down really fast. That's going to show you diminishing returns. If you're DRing a fear with cyclones, it's all going to show up right there, and that's what you're looking for to make sure that the person that you're going to target is eligible to be CC'd, and for how long that CC is going to stick. Alright, so now I'm going to test this out with my target frame and my focus frame, and you can see they're right above each other, and when I start casting something, you can see both cast bars right there next to each other, side by side. Makes it really easy. You only have one spot to look if you want to interrupt either one, or to see if either one is casting to interrupt. The other thing that's bugging me is that my cast bar was showing up directly behind my soul shards, and it was annoying the crap out of me. So I changed the Y offset on my cast bar on the player frame to -20, and that put the cast bar below my soul shards instead of behind my soul shards. Alright, here's where I realized that my pet bar is too big. It kind of falls off to the side of my action bars. I didn't realize it because I didn't have a pet summon before, so I'm going to make that one 0.9 like I do the other. Make the padding 1, and I'm going to slide that over. Realize that it does interfere with bar 7. I'm going to go ahead and make that only 3 buttons instead of 4. That way everything fits on there really nice. And now that's done too. Alright, so I'm going to finish messing with my action bars here. I'm back under my enemy arena frames. I want to make sure the border is black to match the rest of my borders. Diminishing return tracker is enabled. It's very important. They do appear to the right. Cast bars, I want them enabled, and they do appear to the left of the frame, so you can track each one of them to see if any of the enemy arena players are casting. Cast history, again, I disable it. I don't need to see a history of every button that they press. And health bar looks good. Next we have party frames. I don't use party frames through this add-on. I use Blizzard's raid frames as my party frame. So I just uncheck the enable button. I don't want to see them at all. You guys might want to keep them. You might think they're cool. I'm just used to using Blizzard's default frames, and so I leave them unchecked. My focus targets frame. So the target of my focus, I just go ahead and leave a lot of these settings the same. I just kind of change the border and make it match. And I leave everything else kind of the same on that one. Lock the frames. And I test everything out for a moment just to make sure everything looks good. Next, I could tell Recount. The background kind of annoyed me. I just finished making the background on that invisible. And the size is kind of off. I kind of keep it the same size as the map to the left of it. And tip tack, this is my, as you can see as I'm hovering over everything, it just kind of shows the tooltip. What's really cool about this is if you hover over a player in a game, it'll show you what spec they are. It'll also let you know if someone's targeting you without you needing to target them. So if someone's eyeing you down, and you don't even need to target them back to know that. All you have to do is put your mouse over their player, and you'll know if they're targeting you or not. Next up, we have Battleground Targets. This add-on is extremely useful for targeting enemy players, seeing how many of your teammates are targeting the person that's being called out to kill, to know when an enemy flag carrier's health is getting low, so you should go for the cap, for knowing how many healers are in a game, or how close enemy players are to you, so you can get around. So you can see these are the settings that I set up for it. Right here under the 10 versus 10 tab, you can just copy my settings if you want. This is exactly how I like it to be. Again, very useful for just knowing who's in range, health, and who's being targeted, and selecting players in a game without needing to click on them if they're jumping all around the field. The diminishing returns add-on I've never really needed to touch, so I'm going to jump right to extra CD. This one I use a lot. It is very important to me. It's the two little buttons you've probably been seeing floating around your screen and you weren't sure what to do with until now. I put them right over top of my character's portrait. These track buffs, and by default it's already set up to look at your enchant, weapon enchant, the proc for that, and let you know when it goes off. It's also automatically set up to look at your proc PvP trinket and let you know when that goes off. So here I'm going to target the training dummy, and I'm going to get some damage out and see if I can get some of these to proc. So you can see my weapon enchant proc is already going off right now on Mark of Warsong. And as I'm DPSing the dummy, now my PvP trinket also goes off. So it's really important. I don't need to see all the buffs in the upper right. I don't need to see that I have a druid buff or any of that kind of thing. The most important things is to know when your damage procs go off, because that's what's important. That's when you know you have big damage that you can get out there, and when you should pop some of your other cooldowns like Dark Soul or your on use PvP trinket. And it's right there where you need it to be, right near your health, right near your soul shards. You don't need to go looking in the upper right of the screen. It's right in the middle, right where you're looking in combat all the time. So that's why I like using this add-on. It's really helpful for knowing not just that the procs went off, but it also has internal cooldown timers that let you know how soon it can go back off again. Another thing that I use it for is, especially with Affliction, for tracking Soulburn Haunt. Soulburn Haunt lasts 30 seconds. You need to make sure that you try to keep it up. Every 30 seconds, you're refreshing it again. It's kind of a pain in the ass to be looking in the upper right for that buff to see if the 30 seconds is up. So you can use this add-on and add the buff into the add-on so you can track Soulburn Haunt and know exactly when you need to refresh it again. So here's how I manage that. I Google Haunting Spirits because I need to get the spell ID. If you look on Wildhead, it has the spell ID in the URL. So you want to copy that spell ID into the spell ID box, click OK. I accidentally typed in the wrong spell ID. Type in the right spell ID, click OK, add new cooldown, and there you have Haunting Spirits in there. The duration is 30 for 30 seconds, and you click OK. It's not refreshable. It's not like a dot that refreshes. And I think I forget to click the OK button there. You have to make sure you click the OK buttons that appear on everything. So here I go back in. I put the cooldown at 30 seconds. I put the duration at 30 seconds. I don't know if that's the right way to do it, but it seems to work for me. So when I Soulburn Haunt, it shows up 30 seconds right there above my nameplate and lets me know how long I can keep like multi-dotting before I need to refresh Soulburn Haunt again. The next add-on I want to go over is Mask. This allows you to customize the look of your buttons. It's just the skin that goes over your buttons. That's pretty much all it is. Remember, I had to do Mask and then the Mask Daryon. So here you can just change the skin. You can drop it down to Daryon. You can see it changes the complete look of your buttons. You can go back to Blizzard if you want it to look like Blizzard. They have Daryon Clean. Dream looks a little weird. And then Zoomed looks even weirder. You can make these look however you want. I just went with the Daryon, and I think I may have gone back and adjusted the opacity to make it not as dark on the edges, but I went back and did that at a later time. It's just for looks. Next up, we have the Omnibar. Again, this is to track kicks and interrupts from different players. If you get spell locked by another Warlock, you know exactly how long it'll be until that spell lock comes up. Same for rogue kicks or pummels by warrior. You'll know exactly when they do it and when the next time it'll be that it'll come off of cooldown before they can do it again. So you can try to juke it and fake cast and hopefully make them miss the interrupt. So here I ran a test. You can see exactly what it looks like. It'll count down and then it'll disappear when the interrupt's no longer on cooldown anymore. You can adjust these settings however you like. I just made it a little bit smaller so it's not really in the way. And I put it just above my action bars. That way it'll appear when there's a kick or an interrupt that goes off. But it doesn't like flood my screen so it doesn't get too annoying. Here you can see my final settings for this one. I just kind of lock them in place. Omni CC I've never needed to mess with. I just leave that alone. Again, that just adds the countdown timers to the action bar. Like if you Shadow Fury and there's 30 seconds, it'll actually put the 30-second countdown timer on Shadow Fury button itself. Plate buffs, this is one that I haven't really needed to mess with either. It just works. If you're having any problems with the buffs showing up over your target frames, make sure that you have nameplates enabled and go back to where I talk about the installation. You have to make sure that you have the lib nameplates installed. You may also need that Ace 3 add-on. Go check out the beginning of the video where I actually do the install and which add-ons I install, because some of them may be required for plate buffs to work properly, and make sure you download it from the same site that I downloaded mine from as well. I've been very happy with it. But there are settings in here where if you want to add an ability that is not being tracked, you can make it a gigantic button. If you want to know when someone's feared and you want it to take up half your screen, you can do that. So I encourage you to actually look through these settings for plate buffs, and if there is an ability not being tracked that you feel like is important, that you miss, that you want to know. A quick example would be Paladin's R Mastery. You can't interrupt a Paladin during that, so you want to make sure you know when a Paladin's R Mastery goes off. I think it might track that already, but if it didn't, you could add that in there, and then you would know, don't interrupt a Paladin or any of his teammates when he pops that ability. The next add-on I'm going to talk about is Pratt. Pratt is an add-on for your chat box. In the very upper left of your chat box, you'll see kind of a transparent paper symbol. If you click on that button, it brings up this window and allows you to copy and paste text directly from here. So you can copy and paste a conversation. If someone gives you a URL, you can copy a URL, which is probably the most helpful thing ever. You can send links through the game and copy and paste them into a browser. There are some settings in here that I like to modify. I don't need to see timestamps. If you want to see timestamps, you can leave that checked. I don't really want to see timestamps, so I uncheck that one from everything. Everything else I think I tend to leave alone. But there are a ton of other settings in here if you want to look through and decide if anything else looks really good for you. Also, tune level. I'm sorry. I don't need to see what level everyone is, so I uncheck that box as well. The next add-on I'm going to talk about really quick because there's really no customization required. It's called Safe Queue. Pretty much stops you from accidentally leaving queue. It removes the leave queue button when you queue for rated battlegrounds, or I think random battlegrounds. When you queue for arena, you can't accidentally leave queue. If you want to leave queue, you actually have to right-click the green eyeball up near the mini-map and leave queue that way. So if you're drunk, which I am a lot when I'm playing this game, you can accidentally click the wrong button without paying attention and screw over your team. All right, so I'm going to go over my in-game options really quick, just in case there are any questions with any of these things. So you can see exactly what I have checked and what I don't have checked. I have auto loot checked. For combat, this is what I have selected. For display, that's what I have settings for display, for objectives, for social, action bars. A lot of these don't matter. The one that really matters is raid profiles. I checked that box that says use raid style party frames because I use them in arena. And as you could see, you could go back and pause if you needed to, but I put on class colors and I removed the borders, and that's what I like using for raid frames and party frames. It's what I'm used to using. Wow, so that's everything. That's about a 45-minute video. I'm going to have to add a link or a guide or something like that in the beginning to help direct people to which add-ons they want to hear talked about, because I don't expect anyone to sit here for 45 minutes listening to me talk. I haven't been feeling the best lately, so it took me a lot of time to get this video out, a lot of attempts. I feel like my voice isn't projecting very well, so I'm sorry about that. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and ask them in the description of the video. Hopefully you don't, because I did this so thoroughly that there will be no questions. But just in case, go ahead and ask them in the description of the video. I'll put links down there to where you can download all the different add-ons. I'll also put links in there. I'm not really sure how I'm going to do navigation in this video. I may add something in the beginning to help people navigate. I may just put links in the description to help people navigate the video. We'll see. I haven't figured that part out yet, but thanks guys for watching. I hope this helps you out. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you for watching. Thumbs up the video if it's helped you, and I'll talk to you again all really soon. Take care.